All right, so this is kind of like part 2.5 because I'm going to talk more about making stuff look 3D. So if you kind of struggle with this part right here, I'm going to do a much more in-depth explanation for you. If you don't care about making things look 3D, just skip ahead, or if you did a nice job of matching this part, just go ahead and skip ahead. So the whole thing about making things look 3D is you got to pick a direction and stick with that direction. I'll show you what I mean. When I first started, I would kind of always just draw a diagonal line, kind of slanting off to the left, and then connect those dots. Which is fine, but the only thing about doing things this way is I could only make them 3D going one way, and I would just do the same way every single time. So it's more important to understand the basic rules going on, and then you can make it 3D going any direction at all. So I could do the same thing, but diagonal to the right. The example that we did down here, that would just be straight down. All these are going down though. You could totally draw the lines going up as well. So there are so many different ways to make it look 3D, make these letters look 3D. The only rule going on here is whatever you choose to do, you would want to make sure you're doing that direction for every single letter in the word. So since we started off with the letter P and we decide to go for these lines that are going to be straight up and down, that's what we did for ENCIL. Where people start getting a really wild, crazy looking, unreadable result is when every single letter you end up changing this angle of these little lines here. So, if you're pulling up and to the right or down and to the left, that's fine. You just keep that consistent. You just want to keep that consistent throughout the entire piece. So that's a little bit more of an in-depth explanation of making things look 3D. Of course, it's going to pop way more once we line it with some Sharpie. Me personally, I'm still very, very new to block letters and graffiti letters. I've never really dedicated that much time to practicing this stuff. People who are really into it, they are in their sketchbook practicing letters and new styles every single day. And that's where, that's kind of the whole thing about art. If you're into art, at some point you kind of become obsessed with one like aspect of art, or like one little corner of the art world kind of. But me being the art teacher, basically what I am is I'm kind of good at everything, but I'm not like amazing at any one thing. Or another phrase for this that some people will use sometimes is jack of all trades, master of none. Well, that's what it means to be an art teacher. After I do that 3D with the major Sharpie, or I guess the standard size Sharpie, I'll bring out this smaller Sharpie pen. I like to do little details that end up reading kind of like cracks. Like if this letter were, carved out of stone, there'd be these little cracks. So the way we do the crack detail is kind of like a lowercase letter H. I'll show you what I mean by that. So sometimes just this one single line kind of pulled like that. Sometimes you just leave it a line. What you can also do is add kind of like a little H to the bottom of it. And you could go in multiple different directions. But that's going to kind of end up giving it some texture. Like it's a rock or stone or something. Now you can overdo it to the point where you have so many lines all over the place it becomes unreadable or hard to read. So, I recommend only doing this sort of sparingly. Do it in a couple little spots, but try not to get too carried away. So a couple more little tricks to making this thing look more unique. That's all art. That's all graffiti and block lettering is. Just tiny little tricks. Little tricks here. I'm trying to make these letters look like flames, so it's sort of the opposite of 3D and cracks in the rocks and stuff. So, we got some drips. So it looks like it's melting. Then we got the flame at the top, sort of licking up the top there. So it's just different depending on what the idea is. A couple things to take into consideration.